He laughed when the cleaning woman touched the violin, never imagining that within minutes, every ounce of pride in the room would begin to crumble. Morning light poured through the tall glass windows of the Harrington Academy of Music, turning the marble lobby into a field of gold. Students in tailored black rehearsal clothes crossed the polished floors carrying instrument cases worth more than most monthly rents. Their footsteps echoed with urgency, ambition, and the quiet arrogance that often lived inside gifted young people. On the far side of the hall, a woman in a faded gray cardigan pushed a janitor's cart slowly past framed portraits of world-famous graduates. Her name was Evelyn Carter, and to nearly everyone inside those walls, she was invisible. At 38, Evelyn moved with calm precision, collecting discarded programs, wiping fingerprints from brass railings, straightening chairs no one noticed were crooked. Her blonde hair was tied back in a simple knot. Her shoes were practical, worn at the heels, and silent against the stone floor. Students rarely looked at her long enough to remember her face. Faculty members spoke around her, not to her. It was easier that way for them. Easier to believe the world was divided into those who performed beneath chandeliers and those who polished the floors beneath them. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Then let us return to Evelyn Carter, the woman no one bothered to understand. She paused outside Studio B, where the advanced violin class had already begun. Through the narrow window in the door, she watched rows of students seated straight-backed, while Professor Victor Lang paced before them in an expensive navy suit. Lang was a celebrated instructor, known for producing champions and humiliating anyone who disappointed him. His silver cufflinks flashed each time he pointed. His voice could cut through a room like winter wind. Technique without discipline is noise. He snapped at a nervous student whose bow hand trembled. The young man lowered his eyes. No one defended him. No one ever defended anyone in Victor Lang's classroom. Evelyn resumed polishing the hallway rail, but the sound drifting through the door made her slow. A violin passage from Mendelssohn floated out, uneven and tense. She closed her eyes for just a second. Her fingers twitched at her side, as if remembering something they had never forgotten. "There she is again," whispered one student exiting the room for a break. The hallway audience. Another smirked. Maybe she thinks standing near talent will rub off on her. Quiet laughter followed. Evelyn said nothing. She simply continued wiping the brass until it shone. Across the corridor, a freshman named Lily Harper noticed the exchange and looked uncomfortable, but she too remained silent. Silence was common in places built on status. By noon, the academy buzzed with anxiety. That evening's donor recital would bring patrons, critics, and cameras. A featured soloist from Lang's class was scheduled to perform before a packed hall. Careers could begin in one night there. Reputations could end just as fast. Staff hurried through the corridors adjusting floral displays and placing velvet ropes. Evelyn moved among them like a shadow, carrying folded linens toward the recital stage. As she entered the wings, she glanced toward the center spotlight where a single violin rested on a stand beneath the bright, white beam. She stopped for half a breath. Even from 20 feet away, she recognized the instrument instantly. Some loves never need introductions. "Careful with those linens," came a sharp voice behind her. Victor Lang stood at the stage entrance, arms crossed, irritation already in place. His eyes moved from the cart to Evelyn, then to the violin, and a slow, mocking smile appeared. "Though perhaps," he said loudly enough for nearby students to hear, "you'd rather stay and give us a performance." Several students laughed. Evelyn lowered her gaze and gripped the cart handle. Lang had no idea that he had just spoken the sentence everyone in that room would soon wish they could take back. The laughter lingered in the wings for a few seconds after Victor Lang spoke, the kind of laughter people use when they want to belong more than they want to be kind. Evelyn Carter gave no reaction. She simply adjusted the folded white linens in her arms and continued toward the backstage storage room with the same measured pace she used every day. To the students watching, her silence looked like embarrassment. To anyone wiser, it would have looked like discipline. The recital hall beyond the curtains glowed with expensive anticipation. Crystal chandeliers hung above rows of red velvet seats. Floral arrangements lined the aisles. Donors from across New England would begin arriving within the hour, each one expecting excellence polished to perfection. Harrington Academy never sold music alone. It sold prestige, influence, and the promise that genius could be purchased if tuition checks were large enough. Backstage, assistants hurried between dressing rooms carrying garment bags and bottled water. A pianist ran scales in a practice room nearby, each note clipped by nerves. On the wall, a digital clock counted down the final 73 minutes until the performance began. Victor Lang stood near the entrance, speaking sharply into his phone about seating charts and program order. Even under pressure, he carried himself like a man who believed stress was something only lesser people felt. "Where's Adrian?" he snapped. He should have been warming up 20 minutes ago. Adrian Mercer was his star student, a 22-year-old violinist already being called the future of American concert performance. Critics loved him. Donors adored him. Lang treated him like living proof of his own greatness. But when Adrian finally appeared, he did not look like a future legend. He looked pale. His tie was crooked. His breathing came in short, uneven pulls. Sweat darkened the collar of his white shirt. "Professor," Adrian said quietly, "I cannot do this tonight." The hallway froze. Lang stared as though he had been insulted in a foreign language. "You will do exactly what you were trained to do." Adrian shook his head. "My hands will not stop shaking." He lifted them. Even from 6 feet away, the tremor was visible. "I tried in the practice room. I cannot feel the strings." Lang lowered his voice, which somehow made it harsher. "Do not humiliate me 5 minutes before donors arrive." "I am trying not to humiliate myself," Adrian answered. The room went still. Several students looked at the floor. Fear moved through backstage like cold air. Adrian Mercer, the Academy's crown jewel, was unraveling in plain sight. Lang turned away from him in disgust. "Then sit down and gather yourself. You have 20 minutes before doors open." Adrian stumbled toward a chair, pressing both hands together as if he could force steadiness into them. Evelyn, carrying a tray of water bottles past the scene, paused only long enough to place one beside him. "Slow breaths," she said softly. Adrian looked up, surprised anyone had spoken gently. "In through your nose for 4 seconds. Hold for 4. Out for 4. Lang heard her and spun around. "Do not coach my soloist." Evelyn lowered her eyes. "I was only helping." "Then help by mopping something." A few nervous students laughed again, though weaker this time. Adrian, still trembling, took the bottle and whispered, "Thank you." Evelyn gave a small nod and moved on. In the dressing room corridor, freshman Lily Harper caught up to her. "I am sorry about earlier," she said in a hushed voice. "They should not talk to you that way." Evelyn folded another towel neatly. "People usually reveal themselves before they understand anyone else." Lily blinked, unsure what that meant. From the stage came the sound of a violin string snapping with a sharp crack. A stagehand rushed past, carrying Adrian's instrument case. Lang barked orders. Another assistant nearly collided with a music stand. Panic had entered the building, and panic never walked alone. Evelyn glanced once more toward the spotlighted stage where the replacement violin still rested untouched. Her expression did not change, but something old and steady awakened behind her eyes. Before the night was over, the Academy would learn that talent does not always wait in dressing rooms. Sometimes it pushes a cleaning cart. Within minutes, the polished calm of Harrington Academy began to crack. Ushers opened the front doors as donors in tailored coats and glittering jewelry stepped into the lobby, handing over invitations embossed in gold. Their voices carried the easy confidence of people accustomed to being welcomed everywhere. Cameras flashed near the sponsor wall. Waiters passed silver trays of sparkling water and miniature desserts. No one was hungry enough to eat. Out front, everything looked flawless. Behind the curtains, everything was unraveling. Adrian Mercer sat alone in a dressing room with both elbows on his knees, staring at his hands as if they belonged to someone else. The tremor had not eased. His violin rested across his lap untouched. Each time he tried to lift the bow, his fingers tightened and shook harder. Victor Lang paced the hallway outside, jaw set, checking his watch every 30 seconds. 10 minutes, he muttered. "You have 10 minutes to remember who you are." Adrian did not answer. Fear had already taken the room. Students from Lang's studio gathered in clusters, whispering theories, offering useless encouragement, protecting themselves from being associated with failure. Lily Harper stood near the wall, watching it all with growing discomfort. She noticed Evelyn Carter crossing the corridor with a basket of fresh hand towels, moving through the chaos as if storms no longer surprised her. "Miss Carter," Lily said softly, stepping closer. "Do you think you will be all right?" Evelyn set the basket down and glanced toward Adrian's closed door. "Sometimes the hardest audience is the voice inside your own head," she replied. "That one can silence a person faster than any crowd." Lily frowned thoughtfully. There was something in Evelyn's tone that did not sound guessed. It sounded remembered. A stage manager hurried toward Lang. "House is nearly full. The board chairman wants to know if we are starting on time." Lang straightened his tie. "We begin exactly as printed." "With Adrian?" the manager asked carefully. Lang's eyes hardened. "With excellence." But excellence was no longer cooperating. 2 minutes later, Adrian emerged, pale as paper, took 3 steps toward the stage entrance, then stopped. The sound of the audience settling into their seats drifted through the curtain like distant rain. He turned around. "I cannot." Lang stepped close enough for only a few nearby students to hear. "Do not disgrace me." Adrian swallowed. "I am already disgracing myself." He handed over the violin and walked away down the corridor, shoulders bent under invisible weight. No one tried to stop him. The room went silent except for the muffled murmur of 800 waiting guests beyond the curtain. Lang stood frozen with the instrument in one hand and fury in the other. Then came the worst sound in performance: dead time. Every second of delay cost prestige. Every whisper in the audience became speculation. "Find a replacement," Lang snapped at the stage manager. "Anyone from senior studio." One by one, excuses arrived. A wrist strain. No rehearsal. Not prepared for the concerto. Illness. Wrong key edition. In truth, they were terrified. The piece was too difficult, the room too important, the risk too public. Lang's face reddened as options disappeared. His gaze swept the hallway and landed on Evelyn, who was kneeling beside a spilled vase, calmly gathering white roses from the floor. He stared at her for a long moment. Then something cruel and desperate formed behind his eyes. "You enjoy listening outside my classroom," he said loudly. Heads turned. "You linger near rehearsals. You seem fascinated by music." Evelyn looked up slowly. "I appreciate it, yes." Lang lifted the violin with theatrical sarcasm. "Then perhaps tonight is your lucky night." Nervous laughter rippled through the students. "Go entertain them while we sort this out." Lily's eyes widened. "Professor, that is not fair." Lang ignored her. "What is the matter?" he continued. "You stand around these halls like you belong here. Let us see if you do." Evelyn rose to her feet, smoothing her gray cardigan. She looked at the violin, then at the curtain separating arrogance from consequence. The hall beyond had grown restless. Coughs, whispers, shifting seats. Lang extended the instrument toward her with a smirk that had humiliated many people before. "Well," he said, "do you know how to hold it?" Evelyn accepted the violin gently, as though greeting an old friend. And for the first time that night, Victor Lang began to lose control of the story. For a brief moment, no one moved. Victor Lang still wore the smile of a man expecting laughter, expecting awkwardness, expecting another easy humiliation to feed the room. Evelyn Carter stood before him with the violin resting lightly in her hands, her posture relaxed, her expression unreadable. The students nearby exchanged glances. Several lifted their phones, ready to capture what they assumed would be an embarrassing spectacle. Lily Harper lowered hers. Something in Evelyn's stillness made mockery feel dangerous. "This is absurd," muttered one senior student. "She probably cannot tune it." Lang heard the comment and smirked. "Then perhaps we will begin with a lesson in basics." He gestured toward the stage entrance. "Go on. The audience is waiting." Beyond the curtain, the low murmur of hundreds had become impatient. Programs rustled. A cough echoed. Someone near the front laughed too loudly at a private joke. Donors did not like delays, and they liked uncertainty even less. Evelyn looked down at the instrument. Her thumb brushed the worn edge of the chin rest. The smallest flicker crossed her face, not fear, not hesitation, but recognition so old it seemed almost sacred. Then she stepped toward the curtain. Lang called after her with polished cruelty. "Try not to hold it upside down." Several students laughed again, though this time fewer joined in. Evelyn walked past them without a word. The stage manager, desperate for anything to fill the silence, pulled the curtain open halfway and whispered, "Just stand center stage for a moment while we sort this out." Evelyn nodded once and entered the light. The recital hall quieted immediately. 800 faces turned toward the lone woman in a gray cardigan carrying a concert violin. Confusion spread row by row. This was not the young star listed in the program. This was not anyone they recognized. Chandeliers glowed overhead. Velvet seats creaked as people leaned forward. In the front section, board members exchanged uneasy looks. At the side aisle, a local arts reporter lifted a pen. Evelyn reached center stage and stopped beneath the spotlight. For a second, she simply stood there, taking in the room. The polished wood floor, the gold balconies, the silence that follows privilege when it senses something unexpected. Backstage, Lang folded his arms. "Any second now," he said under his breath. "She will freeze." Instead, Evelyn turned the tuning pegs with swift, precise movements. One string, then another. The notes were clean and exact, not guessed, not clumsy, not lucky. A student beside Lang blinked. How did she do that so fast? Lang said nothing. Evelyn raised the violin to her shoulder with a fluid grace no beginner could imitate. The gesture alone carried years hidden inside it. Lily felt a chill run through her arms. "She knows," Lily whispered. "She really knows." In the audience, whispers rolled through the rows. "Who is she? Is this part of the program? Some kind of publicity stunt?" Evelyn closed her eyes for one breath. When she opened them, they were no longer the eyes of a cleaning woman trying to survive another shift. They were steady, distant, and full of command. She drew the bow across the strings. The first note rang out warm and luminous, filling the hall so completely that every whisper died mid-sentence. It was not loud. It did not need to be. It carried authority deeper than volume. A second phrase followed, elegant and aching. Then a third, rising like sunlight through stained glass. The room went silent in the truest sense of the phrase. Even movement stopped. In the front row, an elderly patron gripped the armrest and stared as tears gathered unexpectedly in her eyes. Backstage, Victor Lang's smirk vanished. His jaw loosened. One of his students lowered a phone slowly, no longer recording a joke, but witnessing something far more dangerous. Excellence without permission. Evelyn's bow hand moved with impossible control, each note placed exactly where emotion meets mathematics. She was not filling time anymore. She was taking the room from everyone who thought it belonged to them. And with every measure, Victor Lang began to understand that he had not sent a janitor onto the stage. He had delivered his own downfall into the spotlight. The sound transformed the hall one measure at a time. What had begun as confusion became attention, and attention became awe. Evelyn Carter moved through the concerto with the calm certainty of someone who no longer needed to prove anything. Her bow glided in long silver arcs beneath the spotlight. Her left hand crossed the fingerboard with effortless precision, each shift so clean it seemed the instrument anticipated her touch. There was no wasted motion, no strain, no display for the sake of display. It was mastery stripped of ego, and that made it impossible to ignore. In the third row, a donor who had spent 20 years funding conservatories slowly lowered the program from his lap. "Good Lord," he whispered. "Who trained her?" Beside him, his wife shook her head without taking her eyes off the stage. "No," she murmured. "Who forgot her?" Backstage, Victor Lang stood motionless near the curtain, one hand still gripping the schedule he had crushed into a wrinkled fist. Every few seconds he glanced at his students, perhaps hoping one of them would laugh again and restore the old order. None did. Several stared openly in disbelief. One young violinist had tears in her eyes. Another looked embarrassed, though he could not yet say why. Lily Harper never looked away. She had heard brilliant playing before. Harrington Academy was full of talent. But this was different. Talent asks to be admired. Truth simply arrives. Evelyn reached the cadenza, and the hall seemed to inhale together. The solo passage rose like a private confession spoken aloud to strangers who suddenly understood it. Fast runs cascaded down the room with crystal clarity. Then came a suspended phrase so tender that somewhere in the balcony a woman covered her mouth and began to cry softly. Even the waitstaff standing at the rear doors had stopped moving. Silver trays rested forgotten at their sides. Lang's face had changed. The certainty was gone first. Then the irritation. What remained was the expression of a man watching authority slip from his hands, without knowing how to seize it back. He turned sharply to the stage manager. "Cut the lights after this movement," he whispered. "We will thank the audience and resume the program." The manager did not move. "Are you listening?" Lang hissed. The man swallowed. "Sir, no one wants this to stop." Lang looked toward the audience and saw something worse than rebellion. He saw indifference to him. Their attention belonged entirely to the woman he had mocked. In the front row, the chairman of the board leaned toward an elderly guest with white gloves and a diamond brooch. She had remained silent all evening, but now she sat upright with sudden intensity. "I know her," the woman said, voice trembling. "That cannot be possible." "Know who?" the chairman asked. Her eyes never left the stage. Evelyn Carter. The name meant nothing to him, but around them 2 older patrons turned instantly. One gasped. Another whispered, "The Carnegie prodigy?" A ripple of recognition moved through those old enough to remember newspaper headlines from 15 years earlier, when a rising star had vanished from the concert world without explanation after one legendary season. They remembered magazine covers, sold-out halls, critics calling her the future of American violin. Then silence. No farewell tour. No scandal. No return. Just disappearance. On stage, Evelyn finished the cadenza and entered the final movement with radiant force, drawing applause in the middle of the piece from people who forgot etiquette entirely. Lang heard the murmurs gathering in the front rows and understood enough to feel dread. "Who is Evelyn Carter?" one student whispered behind him. Lily answered softly, eyes fixed ahead. Apparently, the wrong person to underestimate. The final notes approached like sunrise. Evelyn stood centered in the white light, gray cardigan plain against a hall built for luxury. Yet nothing in the room looked more valuable than her. When she delivered the closing phrase, it landed with such grace and finality that the last vibration lingered in the wood before disappearing into stunned silence. For one heartbeat, no one moved. Then the entire hall rose to its feet. The standing ovation struck the hall like thunder. Rows of donors, patrons, parents, and students rose at once, their applause crashing against the gold balconies and crystal chandeliers. Some shouted bravo. Others simply clapped with stunned urgency, as if trying to repay the last 10 minutes with noise. Evelyn Carter lowered the violin slowly and bowed once, modestly, as though the reaction belonged to the music rather than to her. That humility only deepened the room's admiration. In the front row, the elderly woman with white gloves stood straighter than anyone else, tears shining openly now. "I knew it," she whispered. "I knew those hands." Beside her, the chairman of the board looked bewildered. "Who is she?" The woman turned to him with disbelief that he even had to ask. 15 years ago, every major hall in the country wanted Evelyn Carter. Critics called her the purest interpreter of her generation. Then, after her Carnegie Hall triumph, she disappeared overnight. The chairman stared back toward the stage. "And she works here?" "Apparently," the woman replied, voice edged with shame. "She cleans for people who should have recognized greatness." Backstage, Victor Lang did not clap. He could not. His students noticed first. The same man who demanded ovations for mediocrity now stood frozen before excellence. Lily Harper watched him with a new kind of clarity. Authority had always seemed large until truth stood next to it. Lang straightened his jacket and forced movement into his limbs. "All right," he said sharply to no one in particular. "Very touching. We will regain order now." But order had changed owners. A board member hurried backstage with 2 donors close behind. "Professor Lang," he said briskly, "why was Miss Carter not listed as a guest artist?" Lang blinked. "Because she is maintenance staff." The words sounded foolish before they were fully spoken. One donor frowned. "Then why did maintenance staff just outperform your featured program?" Lang opened his mouth, then closed it again. Nearby students pretended not to hear, though every ear was turned toward him. On stage, applause continued until Evelyn finally stepped toward the wings. As she crossed into the shadows, Adrian Mercer rose from a chair in the corridor, eyes red but steady. "I am sorry," he said quietly. "I failed everyone tonight." Evelyn handed him back the violin. "No," she answered gently. "You were afraid tonight. That is not failure. Pretending fear does not exist would have been failure." Adrian swallowed hard. How did you walk out there so calm? Evelyn gave a small smile. I was not calm the first 100 times. He stared at her, realizing greatness had spoken to him like an equal. Before he could say more, the elderly patron approached with careful steps. Up close, her voice shook. Miss Carter, I attended your debut in Chicago. I still have the program. Evelyn's eyes softened with recognition. Mrs. Whitaker, front row, center aisle. You wore blue silk. The woman laughed through tears. You remember. I remember kindness, Evelyn said. The older woman took her hand. Why did you leave? For the first time all evening, silence around Evelyn felt personal rather than dramatic. My mother became ill, she said. She needed care. Fame did not. Several people nearby lowered their eyes. The explanation was simple, and because it was simple, it carried weight. While others chased prestige, she had chosen love and duty, then returned quietly to ordinary work when the spotlight moved on. Lang stepped forward at last, voice strained into politeness. Miss Carter, had I known who you were, of course I would have treated you differently. The corridor went still. Evelyn looked at him for a long moment, not angrily, not triumphantly, just steadily. That, she said, is the problem. No one spoke. Lang's face lost color. She continued in the same calm tone. Respect that depends on status is not respect. It is convenience. Lily felt the words settle into the room heavier than applause. Evelyn turned to Adrian and placed the violin gently in his hands. Next time, breathe first. Then play. She picked up her gray cardigan from a chair, thanked the stage manager for keeping the lights on, and began walking toward the service hallway. Behind her, the most powerful people in the building stepped aside to make room. The service hallway was quiet in a way. The recital hall could never be. No chandeliers. No applause. No polished speeches about excellence. Just plain white walls, fluorescent lights, and the soft hum of an old vending machine near the freight elevator. Evelyn Carter walked through it carrying nothing except the calm she had entered with. Behind her, the academy still roared with excitement, but the sound grew faint with every step. She reached the janitorial closet, set her cardigan over a chair, and began wringing out a mop bucket as if the evening had been no different from any other. That was where Lily Harper found her 10 minutes later. The young violin student stood in the doorway, still wearing concert black, cheeks flushed from everything she had witnessed. Why are you doing that? Lily asked breathlessly. Evelyn glanced up. Because someone spilled punch in the east corridor. No, Lily said, stepping inside. I mean this. Why are you cleaning floors after what just happened? Evelyn returned to the mop handle. Because floors still need cleaning after applause. Lily stared, unsure whether to laugh or cry. You could be anywhere in the world. I am somewhere in the world, Evelyn answered gently. I am here. Before Lily could reply, hurried footsteps approached. 3 board members appeared with the chairman close behind, followed by Mrs. Whitaker and 2 donors carrying business cards like urgent medicine. Their expensive shoes looked strangely out of place near the mop sink. Miss Carter, the chairman began, trying to recover dignity he had misplaced earlier. We would be honored if you joined us in the reception hall. The guests would love to meet you. Evelyn shook her head. That is kind, but I still have work to finish. One donor stepped forward eagerly. I represent the New York Philharmonic Education Committee. We would like to discuss appearances, residencies, perhaps a national interview. Another interrupted. My foundation sponsors women in the arts. Name any number for a speaking engagement. They crowded closer with smiles polished by opportunity. Evelyn listened politely, then set the mop aside. Where were these invitations this morning? No one answered. The fluorescent light seemed harsher suddenly. Mrs. Whitaker lowered her eyes first. We did not know. Evelyn nodded. Exactly. The room fell silent. She did not speak bitterly, only plainly, which made the truth harder to avoid. Talent did not arrive tonight, she continued. Character had a chance to arrive every day. The chairman cleared his throat. We would like to make things right. Then start with your students, Evelyn said. Teach them that excellence without humility becomes vanity. Teach them that service work is still work. Teach them to greet people whose names they do not need. Lily felt the words strike deeper than any master class she had attended. Behind the board members, Adrian Mercer appeared quietly in the hallway, holding his violin case. He had changed into street clothes and looked younger somehow, stripped of expectations. Longer. Greatness had worn a gray cardigan, and they almost asked it to take out the trash. By the next morning, Harrington Academy looked the same from the outside. The stone columns still caught the sunrise. The brass doors still gleamed. Banners announcing excellence still hung across the entrance. But inside, something had shifted that no cleaning product could polish back into place. Students arrived earlier than usual, not for practice, but for gossip. Phones glowed with clips from the previous night. A dozen shaky recordings of Evelyn Carter under the spotlight had already spread across social media. Some videos had hundreds of thousands of views before breakfast. Headlines appeared online with breathless confusion. Unknown custodian stuns elite music academy. Mystery violinist leaves donors speechless. Former prodigy found working janitorial job. In the student lounge, people who had ignored Evelyn for months now spoke her name as if they had always valued it. "I knew she was special," one student claimed to nodding friends. Another insisted he had seen her studying sheet music before dawn. Lily Harper heard them all and said nothing. She had learned that after truth appears, many people try to rewrite where they were standing. In the faculty wing, the mood was colder. Several instructors avoided eye contact in the hallway. One assistant professor quietly removed a joke she had made online the week before about hallway listeners. Another deleted a photo that had shown Evelyn mopping near a rehearsal room. Victor Lang's office door remained shut through the morning. Inside, he sat at his desk surrounded by framed awards that suddenly looked like decorations instead of proof. The knock came at 9:15. The chairman of the board entered with two trustees and closed the door behind him. "We need to discuss last night," he said. Lang straightened. "An unfortunate disruption, but one we can manage." The chairman's expression did not change. "What we need to manage is how a world-class artist was treated like furniture inside this institution." Lang began to defend himself, then stopped when he saw there would be no audience for excuses. Downstairs, Evelyn Carter was replacing a burned-out bulb near the practice rooms. She stood on a short ladder in the same gray cardigan, calm as ever, while students passed in awkward waves and overbright smiles. Some thanked her for things she had done months earlier. Others suddenly insisted on carrying boxes she did not need help with. She accepted kindness when it was sincere and ignored it when it was performance. Adrian Mercer approached carrying 2 coffees. "I did not know what you drink," he said. "So I bought tea and black coffee." Evelyn climbed down from the ladder and smiled. "Smart strategy." He handed her the tea. "I watched the videos this morning." "That was unwise," she replied. "The camera always adds 10 pounds of pressure." Adrian laughed for the first time in days. Then his face grew serious. "I spent years trying to look fearless. You walked on stage while everyone expected you to fail." Evelyn sipped the tea. "No," she said gently. "I walked on stage after I stopped caring what arrogance expected." Those words stayed with him long after she returned to work. Near noon, a formal announcement was posted across campus and emailed to every student, donor, and faculty member. Harrington Academy was creating a full scholarship in honor of caregivers who sacrifice personal ambition for family responsibility. The first scholarship would be named the Evelyn Carter Fellowship. Students gathered around bulletin boards reading the notice twice to make sure it was real. Lily smiled quietly. Some lessons take the shape of policy. At 1 o'clock, Victor Lang finally emerged from his office carrying a cardboard box of personal items. No public scene, no shouting, no dramatic farewell. Just a man walking past portraits of greatness while understanding he had never learned its language. Several students stepped aside to let him pass. None followed. At the end of the corridor, he saw Evelyn polishing fingerprints from a glass case displaying antique instruments. He hesitated, perhaps searching for words that could repair pride after exposure. She looked up, gave a polite nod, and returned to work. He walked on. Sometimes the deepest consequence is not punishment. It is irrelevance. By evening, the academy practiced as usual, scales rising through open doors, metronomes ticking, ambition breathing in every room. Yet whenever footsteps echoed in the hallway, students glanced up a little faster than before. They had learned that the next extraordinary person in the building might not be the one already standing on the stage. 3 weeks later, the first snow of the season drifted across Boston in soft white ribbons, settling on the stone steps of Harrington Academy and quieting the city beyond its gates. Inside, winter recital banners lined the lobby, But the building felt different now. Students held doors open for maintenance staff. Faculty members learned names they had once ignored. Small changes, perhaps, but character often returns in inches before it is noticed in miles. In Studio B, Adrian Mercer stood alone under warm practice lights, violin tucked beneath his chin. He inhaled for 4 seconds, held for 4, then released for 4. Only then did he begin to play. The first phrase came steady and clear. Not perfect, but honest. When he finished, he looked toward the back of the room where Evelyn Carter sat in a folding chair beside a mop bucket, listening with the same attention she gave everyone. Better, he asked. Truer, she replied. Better comes later. Adrian smiled. Those private lessons had become the most valuable education of his life, though no tuition bill would ever reflect it. Lily Harper had changed as well. She now spent 1 hour each Friday helping in the service hallways before her own rehearsals began. At first, she did it out of gratitude. Later, she did it because humility, once practiced, starts to feel less like duty and more like balance. That afternoon, she pinned a flyer to the student board announcing applications for the Evelyn Carter Fellowship. Dozens of students had already applied, many writing essays about family sacrifice, unseen labor, and dignity. A month earlier, few of them would have chosen those subjects voluntarily. In the main office, the chairman reviewed a stack of donor letters. Contributions had increased sharply since the recital. Not because people loved scandal, though some did, but because people recognized authenticity when it finally entered a room. Several benefactors specifically requested that funds support access programs for students from working families. Prestige had opened wallets for years. Integrity opened them wider. Evelyn herself remained unchanged in the ways that mattered. She still arrived before sunrise. She still wore practical shoes. She still repaired loose chair legs, polished brass rails, and reminded students to pick up rosin dust after practice. Offers continued to arrive by email and certified mail. Guest appearances, television interviews, a memoir proposal, a European tour manager who promised the comeback of the century. She declined them all politely, not because she feared the stage, but because she no longer needed anything from it. Some evenings, after the halls emptied, she would stand alone on the recital stage with the lights dimmed low and play for 20 minutes to rows of empty seats. No applause, no cameras, just music returned to its simplest purpose. On the night of the winter concert, snow tapped softly against the high windows while families filled the hall. Adrian was scheduled to perform again, this time by choice rather than expectation. Before walking on stage, he found Evelyn in the wings adjusting a curtain tie. I am nervous, he admitted. Good, she said. It means you care. What if I fail? She looked at him steadily. Then fail honestly, learn quickly, and return stronger. Pride fears failure. Craft learns from it. He nodded and walked into the light. He played beautifully that night, not because fear had vanished, but because vanity had. When the final applause rose, Adrian bowed, then turned toward the wings and gave a small, grateful nod no one else fully understood. After the audience left, the hall emptied into hush. Snowlight reflected across the marble lobby. Evelyn pushed her cart slowly past framed portraits of celebrated alumni. A new photograph had been added near the staircase, students and staff together in the service corridor, laughing with towels in hand after cleaning side by side. She paused, looked at it for a moment, then continued on. Some legends are carved in bronze. Others are written quietly in the way people treat each other afterward. And that was the lesson Harrington Academy would remember long after every note had faded. Greatness does not always announce itself. Sometimes it waits patiently to see who can recognize it without being told.